Let's start the discussion today. I hope you have these slides with you, Money One, which I have shared in the previous week. Also, there was a note attached to the same, so you can use both for your study purposes. Now, money is, as I said, one of the important discussions of this subject. If you look at the paper of this survey of financial system, there is a substantial weight on money, which means there are a couple of questions on money as well as some short answer questions. So in any exam paper, this is a very significant part. So we cannot ignore. Uh, and also, this is the part that we have some, simple calculations as well on monetary aggregates. So we'll have to have some clear understanding about this concept, the definitions, and also uh, on certain simple calculations. Money is an important component of the financial system. As we already know from our previous two discussions, we are very much aware a financial system is a kind of a combination of various subcomponents. We have seen financial institutions, markets, instruments, safety nets, and also infrastructure. All these are very important components of the financial system. And among them, money and the central bank, or we can broadly relate it as money, is an important component of the financial system. The reason is very clear. The financial system is basically formed based on money. Money is the foundation of a financial system. We can't talk about a financial system without money. Now, when I say money in modern context, it may not be the notes and coins, but there could be broader forms of money. But whatever the form, it is the foundation of a financial system. All transactions in the economy, financial transactions, are based on money. Using money only, you can enter into a transaction in the modern context. In the past, you had some other options, which we will discuss in a while. In old ages, you had some other options to complete a transaction. But in modern days, modern times, you have to have money to support your transactions. Transaction means simply you exchange a good or a service or a financial asset. To support it, you have to have money. So as a result, we use a term uh, legal tender. Legal tender. Legal tender means accepted money. Now, money cannot be used or utilized in a society if it is not accepted. So people should accept money to be used in a society. That acceptance will not come by simply consensus, which means you cannot simply agree on certain object uh, to say as money. For example, you take a piece of metal and you agree with the person, okay, this is money. It is basically consensus, but it doesn't, happen in a society. The acceptance comes from the uh, government actually. So the government will tell you, okay, this piece of metal is money, this piece of metal is not money, or this piece of paper is money. So government is basically giving some legality for that object or a kind of a piece of paper. So that legality, you call it as basically legal tender. The transactions are facilitated by legal tender. Legal tender in the sense you agree on a certain uh, asset to be used as money with the decision of the government to make it money. Now it has different forms. It has taken different forms throughout the history. Money has a long history. Even from the pre-modern era, we will observe the usage of money in various forms. 1,000 years back, we have seen the usage of money. So it has taken a long journey. Through that long journey, it has taken different forms at different times. Uh, in certain periods, it has been a kind of a metal, piece of metal in different types, shapes, weightage. In certain period, it has become a paper. Now it has become a kind of a virtual or a kind of a computer entry or a storage or a memory. Likewise, the form of money has changed in different times, but during all these times, money has been an important for the people and to the broader economy because, as we already seen, it facilitates transactions. And money in earlier days, there was no proper institution to be responsible for money. In other words, in early stages, there was no government entity who basically uh, taking the responsibility of money. Sometimes back we have seen when I say the government is issuing money or government is basically giving the legality of money, they have taken the responsibility basically the treasury or the ministry who works with money related to money. So it has been the practice for many centuries, but central banking was introduced to the world in around 17th century. So after that, during last 3-4 centuries, the money is vested under the central bank's responsibility. Now, in modern world, money and central banks are close related. Mostly, money is issued by the central bank. Money is controlled by the central bank. The level of money to the economy is basically decided by the central bank. Likewise, the central bank has become the sole responsible institution, the government institution for money. Central bank is also a government institution. On behalf of the government, the central bank is basically handling money in the modern world. Now, let's define money first before we move further. So, very simply, in most of the instances, we define money as an asset which is generally acceptable as a medium of exchange or a settlement or repayments of debts. Now, this definition has few important words. First, it's an asset. Money is an asset. If you hold money with you, it's an asset for you. It's a kind of, as I said, it could be different forms. For example, if it is currency, your asset is in currency form. This asset can be in securities form. Some securities are considered as money. It can be a payment instrument. So it could be a can be an asset. Likewise, it's an asset that you hold. The second important word is generally acceptable. As I already mentioned, to be treated, to treat a particular object or a paper as money, it should be accepted by the society in general. So that acceptance comes from, as I said, from the government legality. When it makes as legal tender, you call it, general acceptable. What is this acceptability? On what? It should be used as a medium of exchange. Medium of exchange means you should be able to purchase, or it should be you should be able to make payments for goods and services using such money. In other words, as I already mentioned, you have to be able to enter into a transaction. So that is basically, medium of exchange with general acceptability. And also the other feature, you should be able to use money to settle or repay your debt, because in modern world you repay or settle debt using money, not any other asset. Maybe in the past, if you borrow, you may settle using something else, right? Maybe, I don't know, basket of vegetable, or using an animal, a cow, goat, whatever, cattle, right? Maybe it was the case in the past. But in modern world, if a financial institution lends you, a bank gives you a loan, they won't accept anything other than money. You have to pay that in money terms. So it's an important feature in modern economy. So I think the definition is clear. The definition also leads to understand some important features of money. So if you call this as money, you may say these few items as some key features of money. So what are the features of money? Money is not wealth or income. When you have money, you can't say you are wealthy or that's your income. Money is part of wealth or income, right? Now your income, oh sorry, basically we'll take as wealth broadly. Your wealth could be in various forms. Your wealth could be in, money. Money could be, domestic currency or foreign currency. Or your wealth could be in gems, manic, right? Your wealth could be in buildings, could be in as precious metals, gold, silver, etc. Also, your wealth could be in securities, financial securities. In advanced countries, most people keep their, wealth in the form of stock market investments. All these are, forming the wealth. Money is only one part of this wealth, right? It could be one of the major parts, but it's not the entirety. So it's not wealth or income, it's only a part of the wealth. Money is the most liquid asset. Most liquid means you should be able to use it without any conversion, or even if you are converting, you should be able to convert very fast and without the loss, significant loss. Now let's say you have money in the form of currency, it's very liquid. You can use it for transactions without any conversion. If you want to buy a, let's say a pen or a book from the bookshop, you just give money and you buy it. No conversion. But some other assets like securities or could be property, they are not that liquid. To convert a security into money or cash, it takes some time. You cannot sell in a hurry. You can do, but you will lose some part of the value. But money, you can use it directly, as I said. Even a property, it's not 100% liquid, very liquid. If you want to sell it and convert it into cash, that will take some time. And also, if you do it in a hurry, you will incur some loss. But money, it has 100% liquidity, the most liquid asset. Money is universally recognized and accepted. I already mentioned this general acceptability. Universally recognized and accepted means everyone in that society, particular society, should accept money. Now in Sri Lankan economy, we all accept rupees, right? In US economy, they all accept, dollars. In UK, they all accept sterling. Universally accepted means it should be accepted by everyone in that particular society or community. Money is a liability to the issuer. Now, who issues money?
Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
Central bank, yes, in general you can call as central bank or the monetary authority. So they are basically issuing money and they are responsible for the issuance of money. The stock of money is basically released by the central bank. So you call him as an issuer. It's a liability to this issuer. Why do you call it a liability? When you take a balance sheet of the central bank, very clearly you will see, if you take assets and liabilities of the central bank, this is central bank. So currency is on the liability side. Then who owns this asset? If it is a liability to the central bank, in whose balance sheet it will become an asset? In general public's balance sheets, general public, it will become an asset, right? So it's always a liability to the issuer because it is owned by the general public. When you say general public, it could be, public, also banks, right? Parties could be different, but it is not owned by the issuer. Once it is issued, it is held by the or owned by the general public. Now let's look at key functions of money. Now we are already seeing some key functions of money based on the definition. Here in this definition also we have some indications of the functions. These functions of money, it's an important part because in many exam papers we have this. We have this and also we have related this into certain other aspects which we will see in exam questions. So functions of money means what are the deliverables, what are the key purposes or advantages of money. You can use money as a medium of exchange. You can use money as a store of value. You can use money as a unit of account and a standard for deferred payments. Now this is very, standard or very common functions of money. If you have done economics 20 years back, you might remember the same. If you have done economics 20, 30 years back, even in Sinhala, you will very much, you can recall, or if there are some familiar words like mudal yanu, කුමාරු මාධ්‍යයකි මුදල් යනු වටිනාකමේ ඒක මිනුම් ඒකකයකි මුදල් යනු වටිනාකමේ සන්නිධියකි විලම්බීතගේ උම්මාධ්‍යයකි likewise there are various terms you use in Sinhala to describe these functions and I'm sure most of you have some familiarity with such uh, terms used in Sinhala teaching of economics. So what I'm saying, this is very standard for many years. So what do you mean by these functions? So let's start with each and every function and try to get some understanding on it. Okay, without moving to the slide, may I ask from you, what do you feel? What do you mean by a medium of exchange? I think we already discussed it. How do you feel it? What is a medium of exchange?
Money is used as a medium to exchange
Exchange what?
product and services.
Goods and services. Is that so?
Money is we can use as a wallet and credit card, the other forms.
Okay, to support transactions, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Then what do you mean by unit of account?
So do some storage like savings and investments, is it?
Unit of account is like, you can use money to measure, right? To express the value of some goods and service. Whatever you express value, I mean, in relation to whatever the goods and services you use as money, right? For example, you say, okay, a pen is 20 rupees. McDonald in US is, $4. What is the measurement there? Money, isn't it? What you mention as store of value means you use money to keep it as a storage, to save. Likewise, deferred payment means you are using money to pay debt. I think we already discussed. So in the following slides, I have explained these things in a detailed manner. So medium of exchange means, as you already mentioned, money is used to buy or sell goods and services and factors production. Not only goods and services, right? Finished goods and services, of course, you can buy. But factors can also bought using money. For example, what are the factors of production? Can someone tell me? What do you mean by factors of production?
Land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship.
Exactly. So those four factors are the most traditional factors. Some people add today technology, right? Whatever. These factors can be traded using money. Why you use money and what is the importance? Using money will, make easier to have these transactions. Because we already know money is a kind of a universally accepted asset. So as a result, you can use money as a medium of exchange. So medium is exchange means now in modern world, anything that is readily acceptable as well. Now today there are various payment modes, not only currency. Now you should not misunderstand when you say money, it's not only cash or currency plus notes. Not only that, in today's context, there are various forms of money. As you already know, electronic money, digital money, various forms of money. Then the second function, store of value or wealth, people save for future in many forms. We already discussed. People can have various assets, land, gold, gems, securities. Likewise, you can save in many forms. But the issue is when you have these various forms of assets, when you need to convert into cash or when you need to liquidate it, you use the word liquidation. When you liquidate it, you might incur different losses. For example, when you want to sell a land, probably you might be incurring a loss. Gold, a loss, likewise. But when you convert or use money, you are not incurring a loss because it's the most liquid financial asset. So people think accumulating money as an asset is more efficient in terms of storing wealth. But even the value of such money could be eroded over time. That's a possibility. Even though it's most liquid, there's a deficiency or a drawback in money due to one reason. What is that reason? Value of money could be eroded over time. Why is that?
Inflation.
Inflation, which means price changes, isn't it? Over time, prices are changing. Over time, prices are increasing. So with the increase in prices, the value of money could be eroded. Now, for example, if you now today you take 1,000 rupees and you keep it with you, you put it under, let's say, under your, tablecloth. After 5 years, you take out that 1,000 rupee note, still you will see the same note, without any issue. Maybe some discolor is there, but the same note. But the things you can do with that 1,000 rupee note is different to the present day, because by that time the prices in the economy may have changed, so that has changed the purchasing power of money. You call it purchasing power. Purchasing power could be eroded due to inflation over period. So that is a kind of a disadvantage, but people try to compensate for this erosion of value of money. How do you compensate it? Any answer? How can you compensate for this inflation? Any response? Sorry, you have to answer because I can't see the chat. I hear the voice or sound like ting, 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 but I can't see it. How can you compensate for this erosion of value over the time?
Investing in interest products.
Exactly. You pay an interest. How do you pay interest? Without keeping money under the tablecloth, if you put that or deposit that 1,000 rupee in a financial institution, even after 5 years, you will have same value or same purchasing power in terms of interest, because interest component will be added to that money. So you can compensate for the loss of value through interest. Usually that interest should be higher than your inflation. Now let's say inflation is 5%. In 5 years time, your money value should decline by 5%. So if you pay 5% interest, then your value will have the same level, no change. So in order to gain something out of this storing of value or the investment, your interest should be at least 6%, right? Then only you will have some benefit out of this money over the time. So this is the principle for banking, and also to have these positive interest rates, positive real interest rate. The idea it comes from here. Third function, unit of account. Money is the yardstick people to use post prices and record debt. As I said, prices are quoted using money. 25 rupees, 30 rupees, 50 rupees. Likewise, any product or a service is priced in money. Debt is recorded using money. If you borrow, your borrowing is reported in money. Financial transactions are recorded in money, in books. If you look at financial statements, a balance sheet, it's recorded in money. So all the measurements in the economy are used or denominated in money. In the past, you may have different, measurements. For example, in the past, you may say, okay, one cow equals, 10 fish. It's a different measurement. But today, we have a common measurement, that is money. Even fish, even cow can be measured in terms of money. Last function, medium of deferred payments, which means you can use money to pay debt. You enter into financial contracts to borrow, or even even for investments, using money with a promise to have a future payment. If you borrow using a bank loan, you promise to pay in future to the bank. If you borrow using a financial instrument, you promise to pay the holder of the instrument in the future, which means the investor. So for that matter, you use money. As I said, you don't use any other asset. Now, for example, you take a loan from a bank. Do you use a cow to pay the debt in the future? Your bank manager asks, okay, bring some fish for me instead of money. No. In modern world, you settle using it money. So most of the time, if money fulfills the medium of exchange function, that would fulfill most of the other functions naturally. Okay? So this part is really important. Now, if you look at your exam paper, the very recent paper, question number 3. I'm just reading this question number 3. There is some, description given at the beginning, and then the 3.1. Briefly describe the functions of money. That is part 1. So you can now easily answer for 5 marks very easily. What are the functions of money? Medium of exchange, measure of value or the unit of account, store of value, and standard of deferred payment. So if you write those 4 items with some description, you get 5 marks. Part 2, what are the functions of money carried out by the following instruments? Now, there are some instruments given. Using those instruments, if you fulfill a transaction, what kind of a function of money is fulfilled? Now see, I'm not going to, define these now, these instruments, but just naming them. Part 1, top-up cards.
Excuse me, sir. Can you
Yes.
repeat again the question? Second question. What are the
functions of money carried out by the following instruments?
What are the functions of money carried
Out by the following instruments.
by the following instrument? Thank you, sir.
Okay, these are the instruments. A, top-up cards. So what function can be fulfilled?
Medium of exchange.
In a top-up card, basically,
The medium of
sometimes there are some cards you can use it as medium of exchange also. Mostly, what is the function? I think banks have these top-up cards, right? I think e-purse or smart wallets. These are like top-up cards. And also there are some, it's like a payphone card. So sometimes you can use it for transactions. So medium of exchange is also fulfilled, but mostly you fulfill.
Standard of deferred payments.
Oh, what is the most appropriate thing? I think it's a store of value, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You keep some value stored there. Part B, cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency means basically digital money. Which function can be fulfilled using cryptocurrency?
Medium of exchange.
Medium of exchange. What else?
Store of value.
Store of value, yes.
Stand for deferred payment.
I'm not so sure right now. It is used as a payment for debt. Maybe in future it could happen, but right now I'm aware that it is used as a medium of exchange, store of value, and also you can measure the value, right? Instead of certain amounts of particular currency, you can say, okay, particular amounts of Bitcoin, a certain service or a good. So then it also could be a measure of value, isn't it?
Yes, yes, the Amazon, Lanka, and Alibaba also we can use if you have those kind of currencies.
Yeah.
For to purchase.
If it is accepted, right? Now in Sri Lanka, right now you can't use it for transactions. In some countries, maybe it's accepted, but in most countries, the usage of cryptocurrency for legalized transactions is not permitted. Even the originator of cryptocurrency, they have banned it in China, right? Then the third one, QR code. QR code means probably you may have seen a kind of a digital algorithm, a kind of a code derived from the computer. In modern days, you use QR code for payments. What kind of function you fulfill there?
Standard for payments.
Which means medium of exchange, right? Not the standard for deferred payments. It's actually a medium of exchange. You use it for transaction. It's not a kind of QR code is not money, but it fulfills some of the transactions of money. Functions of money. A credit card. What are the functions you fulfill using a credit card?
Deferred
Medium of
payment.
Medium of exchange, yes.
Standard for deferred
Some
payment.
standard for
store of
deferred
value.
payment. Store of value, yes. All these functions are fulfilled. And now today we have a smart card. You call it NFC smart card, which means near field communication smart card. That is the technology used there. You can probably, broadly say smart card. Why do you, what are the functions you fulfill using a smart card? You use it for medium of exchange, isn't it? Or even store of value. Both functions can be fulfilled. Now, these are not very strict, kind of functions. Even some smart cards probably might have some other functions as well. But here, what we are trying to understand at least one or two functions fulfilled by these these payment instruments. So this question was there in the most recent paper in January 2021. So likewise, if you go back to the papers, you will see a lot of questions related to this area. Now, I already mentioned every country, most of the country, they have an accepted currency, which you call as legal tender. So this legal tender, mostly notes and coins. The government legality is applied or given to these notes and coins. So people use those notes and coins for transactions, exchange. Now, if you look at the economy, if you search the economy, you will see these transactions or exchanges will not only happen will not happen using only notes and coins. There are some other forms of methods can be used for the transactions. What are these methods? Basically, you can do transactions through bank accounts. So in the banks, you have various accounts. There are current accounts, there are savings account, long-term accounts, credit, which means fixed accounts, even credit cards. All these are helping to perform the transactions in the economy. Now, even though you fulfill the transactions in the economy, all these bank products may not be money. Okay? Some could be part of money. Now, for example, there is an argument whether a credit card is money or not. Some people say it's money. Some people say it's not money. Right? There are various arguments. So, what is the key characteristic or criteria to be considered as money? We have already seen money is a liquid asset. So that liquidity should be there mainly, and also it should fulfill certain functions of money. Even with the certain functions, you may not consider all these bank facilities as money. For example, I already mentioned a QR code. Even though you use it for transactions, it fulfills some functions of money. It's not money. As I said, some people disagree on credit cards. Some people say it's not a part of money. It's not part of money. So likewise. But the idea is there are various forms of money in the economy, depending on the way you identify and the way you use it. We'll see some of these different classifications in the following discussion. Now, as I said, every country has a legal tender. We know now, I think when you were in school, you tend to memorize these things. Sri Lanka has rupees, India has rupees, Indonesia has rupiah, the Bangladesh has taka, US has dollars, uh, Russia has ruble, South Africa has dollars, right? New Zealand has dollars, Australia has dollars. Uh, Likewise, and in UK has sterling, Euro area has euro, right? Japan has yen, China has renminbi, likewise, Malaysia ringgit. Likewise, you try to memorize. Now, that suggests every country has a legal tender. But, and legal tender, countries use that legal tender for their transaction. Now, for example, if a foreigner comes to Sri Lanka with a dollar note, he cannot do a transaction using the dollar note in Sri Lanka. He has to convert into local currency, which means the legal tender of that particular country, and use it. Only few places would accept foreign currency for the transaction. For example, at the airport, the duty-free shops, you can use foreign currency. But when you enter to the country from the immigration, you cannot give the same dollar note to the taxi driver. Of course, he will ask dollars from you when you travel in a taxi. It's a different matter, but you cannot fulfill the transaction using that dollar note. So you have to have your own currency, the particular country's currency, which means the legal tender. So that is the tendency or the normal feature of any country. But there are some countries use currencies of other countries as their national currency or to fulfill their transactions. For example, this Bahamas, Uruguay, Cambodia, and even I was told Maldives, I think Bhutan, all these countries use other currencies of other countries to fulfill their transactions. Now they have their own currency, but still they use other currencies for the transactions. Now, for example, in
Do they
Cambodia,
have a central bank?
sorry, they have a central bank and they have issued currency as well. Now, for example, I was telling in Cambodia, if you go to a shop in Cambodia, when you do a transaction and when you fulfill the transaction, you give money to the vendor. No? I can't remember what is the Cambodian currency. Does anyone know? I think in Cambodia they have real, a currency called real. So these are large value notes. I have seen these notes. Now, for example, a minimum note could be, 10,000 real. So you give it to the vendor to fulfill the transaction. He would ask, okay, we will not accept this. Do you have USD? Right? Then if you have USD, you happily give and you do the transaction. If you don't have the USD, probably you won't be able to buy that particular good in Cambodia. Still, they have real in hand, which means the national currency is there, but they prefer the foreign currency USD. Why is that? The reason is
High inflation.
the trust. Huh? Yes, sorry. What did you say?
Power of the money.
purchasing power of the money, probably it has been eroded because of high inflation. Now in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, in those countries right now, people, they don't believe their national
Can
currency.
you hear me?
The reason is you lose the trust, confidence on the national currency. So then people prefer some other currencies. In some cases, for the convenience, you prefer the other country's currency. And I think in Bhutan, they prefer to have Indian rupee for their transactions. Even Bhutan have a currency, but still they prefer Indian rupee because it's easy for their transactions, because the Bhutanese economy is mainly dependent on India. Their main production is hydropower, electricity, and that is basically sold to India. I think 90% of their GDP is coming from, hydropower generation sold to India. So mainly their transactions with India, so they prefer to have Indian currency. There could be various reasons. This situation, you call it currency substitution or dollarization. So these Bahamas, Uruguay, Cambodia, even Maldives, those countries are considered as dollarized countries. Dollarized means you use the currency of another country for domestic transactions. Just mentioned to you for your knowledge. Okay. Now, actually, up to this point, we were basically talking about, some background information or some basics of money. Now, let's move on to look at the history of money, which means how money has been evolved over time. So evolution of money, that starts with the system called a barter system. So barter means, barter simply, not barter, right? Barter means simply the exchange. What are you exchanging? You exchange goods or services directly for other goods and services without using a medium of exchange. Now, if you look at this picture, you will see a person is giving fish to someone and getting back grain from someone. So exchanging fish and grain directly. There's nothing in between. So this direct exchange, you call it a barter system. Now, even in modern world, you might see this barter system. Some people use, okay, directly you exchange goods. But that doesn't mean that we don't have money in that particular society or in relation to that particular transaction. If you have, but you prefer to have goods to be exchanged. In the past, it was not the case. There was no money and barter was the only solution. In a moneyless society, barter was the only solution. So when you exchange, mostly what you exchange is your surplus. A person who produces fish, he will exchange the surplus of fish production. The person who's having grain, he will exchange a surplus of grain production without keeping the surplus with him. By exchanging this surplus, you try to fulfill what is not available with you. When you exchange fish, you are asking for grain because you don't have grain. You want to fulfill the requirement of grain. So this is barter system. Barter system was not that effective in a moneyless society. It is the only option, but it's not a very efficient system because there are various disadvantages. Now, these disadvantages are important. We need to understand. Even an exam question is there. For example, 2021 January question 1.4, sorry, 3.4 is on briefly discussing 5 limitations of the barter system. So this was there even in your exam paper. So I'm just putting a star here because it's an important slide. So what are the disadvantages of barter system? The first and most important disadvantage is you need to have the presence of double coincidence of bonds. What do you mean by that? Can anyone suggest an answer? What do you mean by double coincidence?
Both person need wants to be same.
Both persons needs to be
Same. That
same in the sense.
if A have one product, it won't buy B. That means B have one product, it won't buy A. Otherwise, they can't change it.
Okay, what you are saying is both parties should have similar needs. For barter to occur between the two people, both would need to have what the other wants, right? For example, in this previous case, this person has fish, this person has grain. So this person is exchanging fish with grain. So what if this happens? The person with fish, he goes to the person with grain and say, okay, let's see, I have some fish. Would you like to take this fish and give me some grain, please? Then the other person would say, sorry, I don't need fish. I only need meat. Sorry, bro, in your language. Right? Sorry, brother. This will not happen. So there is no match between the needs. If he only says, okay, give me fish, I'll give you grain, then only the transaction would be fulfilled. So that is the idea of need for double coincidence of wants. Both needs should be matched with each other. Then absence of a common measure of value. We know in a money-based economy, money plays a role of a measure of value for all goods. We have seen it. But that role is absent in the barter system. You don't have common agreement here. Now this person is giving one fish and getting one, kilo of grain maybe. For another person, it could be different. He is giving one fish, he is only getting half a kilo. There's no common measure of value. Third one, indivisibility of certain goods. Now, of course, if you are exchanging a cow, can you divide? You can divide, but no purpose, right? So you have to have divisibility. If you want to exchange in small quantities, small units, you'll have to have it in place. In a barter system, you can't do it. Transaction will not occur. Fourth one, lack of standards for deferred payments. Now, in a money society, you can use money for pay debt. But here, you can pay debt using goods. But what is the common standard? That is a question. Difficulty of storing wealth. You can't, store wealth using these goods in the barter system. Now, for example, can you store wealth using fish or grain? At least for grain, for some time you can use it to store wealth. You can accumulate wealth. But can you use a fish? No. So that difficulty is there. High search cost is there. High search cost means you have to find a person that perfectly matches with your transaction. It's a difficult task. Maybe you have to work whole day to find a person who wants fish from you. So that involves high search costs. So all these drive some disadvantages or inefficiencies in transactions. So such inefficiencies are very common in a barter system. But at that time, it was the only solution, as we discussed, because you don't have any other way to fulfill your transaction. But it is inefficient when you compare with a money-based society. So these difficulties in the history created some space to introduce some other intermediate or intermediary to fulfill the transaction. So who is this intermediary came, into the transaction? People used a commodity to support this transaction. Without directly exchanging, people introduce now a commodity. That commodity is a intermediary to resolve the double coincidence of bonds problem. If two people's bonds are not matching, when you have an intermediate commodity, intermediate object or item, that will facilitate your transaction. So you define in commodity money, money whose value comes from a commodity out of which it is made. So it's money. The value of that money is dependent on the commodity itself. For example, this gold coin is a commodity. So the value of the gold coin is basically dependent on the value of gold. So a good is used as money in this case, a commodity, when you come to commodity money. If you look at early forms of commodity money, up to certain era of the history, people use some, commodities which they could find from their environment. So people use shell, even cattle, even salt as commodities. So people who have these shells, who were living in the coastal area, they could easily find these shells. So they use it as an intermediate or intermediary object to facilitate a transaction. You give shells and you buy what you want. The person who's owning these shells, he can use these shells to buy another good. Likewise, it became a third party to facilitate transactions. Later, these items were replaced with some proper commodity money. This proper commodity money was manufactured using precious metal, gold and silver. So this horseshoe type commodity money can be found in early stages of the history of money. So this is actually money, a different type of money. There were some other shapes also, diamonds, spades, likewise. So after this point onwards, the precious metal was used to manufacture or mint commodity money, and that has evolved into different shapes, improved quality, and general acceptability. This coin is very important. This is considered as the world's first coin issued in human history. This one is also a kind of money, but it's not proper coin, right? The first proper coin was issued. You call it as Athenian owl. This coin is named as Athenian owl. Athenian means it belongs to which state?
Italy?
Athens.
Italy?
Athens. Not Italy. Where is Athens?
Greece.
Even today, huh? Even today, Athens is the capital of which country? I think you had Olympics there, right? In Athens. The first Olympics were happened there. Hmm?
Greece.
Greece, exactly. So the Greece, we know in human history, Greece is a very important milestone. Greek civilization, where you have these a lot of philosophers, etc. Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, all these lived in this Athens kingdom. So during that time, the first coin was issued in a place called Lydia. In Greece, there's a place called Lydia. That was the very first coin issued in Lydia. Based on this Lydia and Athens, this Athenian owl became very common and very popular. They used this owl because they considered this animal as the symbol of prosperity. Even you can do a pendant with an owl and put it in your necklace. So they considered it an owl as the symbol of prosperity, and this became the very famous coin in pre-modern era. So after that, a lot of coins were issued in various countries, commodity money. Now this coin with a hole on the in the middle is a Chinese coin. Then you have a lot of Roman coins, English coins. Now can someone take a guess of this coin? What is this last one? From where?
Gold coin by Egypt.
Gold coin by Egypt. Are you sure? How about others? Where do you find this coin? Hmm? Have you ever seen this?
Is that Sri Lanka, sir?
Okay, the first hurdle is passed. It's a Sri Lankan coin. Okay. Have you seen this? If you go to, have you ever visited the museum? Students, have you ever visited a museum in Sri Lanka?
Yes, sir. The gold.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Have you ever seen this coin?
No,
Even if
sir.
you now go to a museum, Colombo Museum or Polonnaruwa Museum,
Is it
wherever,
called
you will see this
is
coin.
it called as is it called as Kahavanu, sir?
Exactly. Right. Kahavanu. Now in India, they have used this Kahavanu, right? They call it Kahapana. So it evolved from this. Now during Anuradhapura period, we have seen these coins used by various kings using their maybe portrait or whatever various symbols. Now this coin, I what I have taken here is it's related to I think Polonnaruwa kingdom, 11th or 12th century. This is considered as issued by King Great Parakrambahu or Nishankamal, right? Where you have some symbols of prosperity and security, and also the portrait of the king, right? So these are some gold coins. So likewise, what I wanted to tell you, the usage of commodity money became very popular across various countries during the history. Now from the barter, what we have seen, introduction of this commodity money earlier, some things that you can find from the environment, and later on some precious metal based coins like gold and silver, even copper coins, they became very popular in many countries as mean of transactions or as a mean of facilitating transactions by way of money. Okay, so this is an important milestone of history in money. Later, this money was basically supplemented by paper money. Why was that? Commodity money, naturally it has some issues, problems. I think in this second slide, next slide, I have given you these problems. I'll come back to that point. So problems of commodity money led to creating paper money. Paper money means now the money is based on a certain piece of paper. Now I already mentioned to you, money will not be considered as money unless you have some government power attached to it. I already mentioned that legal tender, word legal tender. So you have to attach the legal tender to money, then it will be accepted. So paper, how do you make paper as money? You have to say, the government should say, okay, this is money. So when you attach the government, you call the word decree. So government is attaching its decree or the power on paper. Then you call it fiat money. So paper money is actually fiat money. Fiat means simply the government order. The government order. Order means they are law, right? So this paper money came into usage. So paper money originated from a promise to pay. What do you mean by promise to pay? In early ages, in pre-modern era, people used these commodity money, let's say that bulky metal-based coins, you deposit somewhere and you take a piece of paper for that. Let's say you deposit 100 coins and you take a piece of paper for that 100 coins. That piece of paper is a promise to pay. What is the promise? When you bring it back, you will be refunded with your 100 coins. So this concept was originally used in China, pre-modern China, around 7th century. So this, I have taken this from internet. So this is considered as the first paper money in the world issued in China, used by these Chinese merchants. So they exchange heavy coinage for such receipts of deposits issued by certain people or entities, mainly wholesale shopkeepers, as a method of transactions. Later, it became very popular, even though the Chinese people introduced this around 7th century. Paper money became very popular around 12th, 13th, 14th centuries especially in the Middle Ages, around 15th century in the Middle Ages in Europe. I think you are aware, if you read history, during these Middle Ages, around 13th, 14th, 15th centuries, a lot of innovations, good things, developments happen. So during that period, the idea of bills of exchange came into use. Bills of exchange. So this bills of exchange is very similar to the idea of that promise to pay. So it's a written order used in trade. What is this order? There is a binding of one party to pay a fixed sum of money to another party. So that concept is the origin of modern paper money. What you use today as paper money originated from these bills of exchange used in the Europe in the Middle Ages. So why this paper money was used? So now we use the term fiat money because I already mentioned to you paper money is simply fiat money. So fiat money or paper money, it's not derived from any commodity. So which means there is no intrinsic value of fiat money. If you take a gold coin, this commodity money, there is an intrinsic value. What is the intrinsic value? The value of that metal. If you take this gold coin, it has a value based on that metal. But paper money, there's no intrinsic value because the value of paper does not equal to the value of money. For example, if you take 100 rupee note, that doesn't mean that 100 rupee equals the value of paper. Okay. So as a result, there's no guarantee that you can't convert into a valuable commodity. Can you convert this 100 rupee into gold, a piece of gold? No. So it is purely by the government order. So the value is assigned by government order fiat. If you take this currency has become, kind of a valuable piece of paper because the government has imposed its order. In Sri Lanka, the government has imposed its order by, by signing two responsible authorities, the finance minister and the central bank governor. Then it becomes accepted currency for the transaction. Right? So why this paper money came into scenario? Because as I said, the problems of commodity money. Barter has problems, then commodity money came. Even commodity money has problems. What are these problems? Deterioration. The value will not be the same. For example, the gold value heavily fluctuates. If you look at history of money, you will see the value of silver, value of gold, value of copper. Time to time, they change, volatile. Sometimes it get depreciated, the value. Illiquidity. You cannot simply hurriedly convert that into another form of money, right? Illiquid. Bulkiness. This is the main problem. It's very heavy. Transportation is really, difficult. Probably you may have seen some old movies, Robin Hood and all these teleseries. Probably you may recall how this money is, taken from some place to another place. The king sends his, team to collect tax in carts, right? You have to have some, bullock carts or chariots or whatever, because it's really heavy. Indivisibility. Most of the time, these, coins cannot be, divided into small pieces. High opportunity cost. Since the money value equals to its metal value, there is a high opportunity cost. So all these led to introduction of fiat currency. The other advantage of fiat currency is you can expand the money supply without expanding the output of the economy. This is a problem as well as a benefit. Okay? Governments or countries relied on fiat money because they could easily expand the money supply. Now, commodity money supply, you can't expand. Now, this, let's say, coin, these gold coins or whatever the silver coins, you cannot simply expand unless you have gold or silver reserves. You have to have. But paper money, it's only government printing of money. You can simply expand. There are some factors behind expanding money supply, even the paper money supply. But it's not that difficult compared to commodity mines. When you talk about this fiat money, I told you the European intervention is really important. The European bills of exchange, the merchants, their activities, they actually fueled or they actually supported the evolution of this paper money. So during this evolution in 17th century, we see some important development in London, which means the goldsmiths in London, they developed this money practice or money issuance into banking. How it happened? So these goldsmith people, they accepted metal reserves for their customers. Now during this time in London, mainly gold coins were used, right? That was the key currency used in UK, sterling, right? So the sterling was basically used there, and as I said, because of the problems in commodity money, people used these to deposit with certain institutions, and for that matter, they issued promissory notes. So these promissory notes were issued for money deposited with the people. One of these peoples are goldsmiths. So goldsmith is like some people in Sri Lanka. We have these uh, 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 you know uh, pawnbrokers, right? They accept gold and give you some money. Likewise in UK, these goldsmiths, they accept gold coins and issued a note, promissory note. So here we have a sample of this promissory note. What does that say? Okay, you have deposited this amount of money with us. We owe that amount, and once you return the note, we will give it back. So it's payable on demand. Not only that, you could use this note to do transactions with another one. For example, you can give this note to someone and purchase something else. That is another advantage of this goldsmith's promissory note. Not only that, goldsmiths gave loans based on these metal reserves. People deposited their money with the goldsmith, so you can ask a loan based on that. So that loans were issued in terms of these notes. So what does that mean? New money was created based on loans, credit. This is what modern banks do. Modern banks accept your money, your coins and notes as deposits. And they give loans based on those deposits and create new money. That new money are basically new bank accounts. So the same concept. So in that way, we consider goldsmiths in London, they developed modern banking practices 400 years ago roughly. What is the modern banking practice? Accepting money and issuing a note, which means a promise to pay. Even today, we have the same concept. Accepting money and they give you a receipt, a passbook or a fixed deposit receipt. And you can use it even to borrow. That borrowings, that loans create new money. Now, the next point in history, now we have seen goldsmiths started issuing money, paper money, and then we see how central banks came into this equation, or how central banks started their job. Now, when goldsmith started doing this business, people saw this as an interesting, attractive, lucrative business. So what has happened? Different types of notes or different money went hand in hand across number of institutions. Not only goldsmiths, other institutions also started issuing similar notes. You know it, no? If someone, starts, Kottukada, if you see a very good business is there, others will also do the same. They follow the same. Whenever you see some lucrative business opportunity, you will enter to the same business. So likewise, this money business was seen as an interesting business. So a lot of people, they issued these notes. Now what will happen? These private players, let's say private commercial banks, they issued number of notes, and those notes were issued, those is, notes issued by those banks were in circulation. So a lot of notes were going around. Now what will happen? Now the system becomes very complicated. Why? When you have various types of notes, you have to have a central place to clear or settle. Someone should accept, to facilitate this transaction. So then people realized that there should be a centralized bank to handle this. And also it was realized there should be a centralized place to issue these notes. So what has happened? Banknote issuances by these private financial institutions as the legal tender, replaced by banknotes authorized and controlled by the government. So that function was taken over by the government, and government created the special institution for that matter. What is that institution?
Banks,
Central
financial
bank.
system.
Yes. So central bank was created. Now originally the central bank, it is not actually a government bank. Originally central banking function was assigned to a private bank. UK government said, okay, you act as the central agency for this. So it's a private bank. So that private bank was emerged as the national bank to support this money issuance and clearing those issuances when it comes to transactions. So later on, this private bank was basically nationalized and it was created as a government-owned central bank. It's a different story. I'm not going to that area, but what really has happened, central banks emerged or established as commercial banks, government banks, or clearing houses. They became the monopoly issuer of the currency. Monopoly issuer means they are the only issuer. All other private issuers were not permitted to issue currencies anymore. Government took the control because it's a very profitable business as well. Why it was profitable? Government can issue any amount of notes to facilitate their actions. Now, during this time, if you read history, the expenses of the government was really high during this period. Why? Most of the governments, especially UK government during this period, they were engaged heavily in war. Actually, the central bank in UK was created to finance the war with France, right? So during this time, the British war was at high levels. French army was very powerful. To attack them, government needed money and people. So how do you get money and people? You have to pay people to recruit for the army. For that, you have to have money. How do you find money? You have to print new money. The printing of new money was done by this newly created central bank. Okay. So as a result, the first central bank was founded around 1664 in Sweden. But the most famous and the most modern type of central bank was created in UK. We call it as Bank of England, created in 1694, who began producing handwritten banknotes. So they issued not printed hand notes, printed bank notes or currency. They are like handwritten banknotes. Even if you look at this one, it's like handwritten, not printed. So these notes were redeemable for gold. Redeemable means you can give it back to the bank and get your value back in gold coins or any other coins. Okay. So this is the origination of the central bank. So now we know commodity evolved to fiat currency, and the issuance of fiat currency led to creation of the central bank. Now later on we see another development. You have both coins and notes in the system now. Now later on another development came. What is this development? Basically, we know these notes and coins or paper currency and coins can be easily stolen, can be expensive to transport in large amounts. Compared to this commodity money, you can easily transport, but still you have a problem of security and cost of transportation. So to resolve this issue, another step in the evolution of the payment system occurred. What was that? Not only in UK, the banking practices were spread to other countries as well. So modern banking practices was evolved, and with that we see checks were invented during that period. So this is around 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, basically 17th and 18th century. Checks were introduced. Checks allow transactions to take place without the need to carry out large amounts of currency. You don't need to transport currency to make a payment. You simply issue a check from your account. You have money in the account, which means you have money in the bank. To do the transaction, you issue a check. So it was major innovation that improved the efficiency of the payment system. Another important step during this evolution of money is the gold standard. Gold standard is actually a system of money. It's a kind of a banking system used in 20th century. I think by late 19th century and early 20th century, this system was in place, and that continued up until around 1970s. So under the gold standard, what really happens, it's a kind of a monetary system. The standard monetary unit of a country is fixed on a fixed quantity of gold. Each and every country fix their money to a certain amount of gold. For example, US dollar is fixed to certain amount of gold. Rupee is fixed to certain amount of gold. Yen is fixed to certain amount of gold. Why this gold standard was used? To stabilize the exchange rates. Exchange rate means the rate that you are exchanging one currency with another one. So when you fix the exchange value, that will ensure the stability of the exchange rate. So by late 19th century, most of the world major currencies were fixed to this gold at a set price per ounce. You call it a gold standard. Even after World War I and II, this was in practice, especially after World War II, this system was basically strengthened by introducing a system called Bretton Woods system. Bretton Woods system. Bretton Woods system was introduced in 1945. So under this system also, you fixed your currency based on the US dollar. That was the difference. But mainly, most of the currencies are fixed to the gold standard. But this was abandoned by 1971. So it's not there anymore in the world, but it's an important era of the 19th and 20th century, the gold standard. In the 20th century, there is another important development happened. What is that development? Mainly, electronic payments and e-money came into the system, to the payment system. So what is e-money? E-system is a way of making transactions or paying for goods and services through an electronic medium. So this electronic medium can substitute paying through checks, substitute paying through cash. So without carrying cash, coins and notes, or without issuing a check, you can use a form of electronic transaction which we called as electronic money. So it's a digital equivalent of cash stored on an electronic device, right? So this e-money is basically a kind of stored in an electronic device. Now all these evolutions of, top-up cards, cryptocurrency, smart cards, credit card, its concept is based on electronic money. And also you can do transactions using or fund transfers using electronic impulses. So during the 20th century, especially after 1960s, you will see these transactions are becoming very popular. Debit cards, smart cards, e-money transaction, fund transfers, all these became very popular in the late 20th century. Especially, I think credit cards were introduced in 1960s by a private company in US. I think it's a kind of a company that sells durable goods. To introduce a easy payment system, easy payment scheme, they use this concept of electronic cards, electronic money. Now in 20th and 21st century, what do we have today? We have digital money. So what is digital money? Now it remains the most important stage of evolution of money. What is that? It's actually based on not even electronic impulses or electronic method. We have now digital forms of transactions. So these digital form of transactions and methods are created using computer algorithms. For example, we talk about virtual currency today. Virtual currencies are basically computer generated money. You call them as computer algorithms. Now, today we talk about the smart money, mobile money, cryptocurrency. All these are based on the concept of digital money. So from this timeline, you will see from around 900 BC, before Christ period, when we started using cattle as money, or crops, or shells or salt, whatever, as money. From that to today's situation where we have these all electronic means of payments and digital type of payments, the money has evolved over a millennium period of time, right? More than few millenniums of timeline it has passed to reach the level that we observe today. So it's a revolutionary evolution. Why revolutionary? From very primitive levels, it has become very advanced, technology-based asset today. Okay. Now, I want to discuss this digital money in bit detail. So for that, actually, I'm going to be based on some exam questions as well. There are some important exam questions related to digital money. So I need some time for that. So probably we might do it next week since we have only a few minutes left. So I hope you have very clear understanding about how money has evolved and what forms of money available in the system now. Now with this basic knowledge, in the next session, we will be looking at digital money to some extent, and also we will be looking at how money is basically classified and also what kind of definitions we have on money. So we will do that in the next session. Okay. So it's time to wind up for the day. Now, I think there is a, plan by the IBSL, because I think this semester we have some tight time schedule because the weeks are not sufficient. So they have arranged some extra classes as well, and I was told there will be an extra class on the Poya Day, right? Poya Day, if I'm not mistaken, that's on 23rd Friday. 23rd Friday. Probably there will be a class. So be on alert. They will announce on the platforms. There will be an additional class on Friday. So if so, we might have survey financial system in the morning, 8 o'clock, right? Usual time slot. I'm not guaranteeing it 100%. There is a possibility. I will also have to check my schedule and also confirm with the IBSL, sorry. And then let's try to have this class on Friday. Friday 8 o'clock.
Excuse me, sir. Is there any possibility to take a class on 21st? Because in the previous batch, account students having class 23rd, 9 to 12 o'clock. The paper discussing will be going.
It's on what? It's on
The accounting class, the business accounting, the previous
business
batch one.
accounting. Okay. It's
Yeah, so
revision
they
class.
have scheduled. Yeah, that's a revision class because they have scheduled 23rd of July from 9 to 12.
Okay. I'll
So
check
if
with
it is,
them because I think 21st is also a holiday, right?
yes,
I'll,
sir.
how about others? Others also have similar issues. Hmm? Someone has already raised the question, sir. Do we have the class on holiday? Yes, holidays are approaching, and one of the holiday 21st or 23rd. We have to have this class, but as someone said, I'll check with the IBSL and let you know. I think it will be announced on your Moodle. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Right. So we will meet you one of these days, most probably. And if not, surely we will have our class on the usual time slot on Sunday. But otherwise, let's try to have one additional class on one of these days. Then we will be comfortably completing our discussions. Okay. Right. So have a good weekend. I'll see you soon. Thank you.